Quit eating, folks, 30 seconds to showtime. Grab your seat, leave your drinks to the bar. Hold your breath, put your hands together. We present Stanford Bay's finest star, who has danced with the Mayor of Guinea, who has dined with the Queen of Vermont. We trace the voyages of Sinbad, corresponded with the men who can't love us to be. C'est pas la même chose que la vache qui rit. La vache est fort, mon ami.
And hello, everybody. My name is Jeff with a G, and welcome once again to the G Spot, which is a fun show, interview, talk to different people on Saturdays right here on Cabin Fever live stream. Today, I just got done. Today, I have a really, really great guest. I actually bought a book recently, and I got really into the book, and so I figured I'd bring on one of the author who has lots of great stories onto it. So we have the one and only and the amazing Trav SD. How are you doing, Trav?
Hello, America, and all the ships at home. How are things down in Austin, Jeff?
Well, in theory, everything should be shut down, and yet it's not. And so,
I've been hearing. That's a drag.
Yeah, so it's like, and my job, because I have a job, I have a normal, real job too. I work in a costume shop, and it's like a weird tourist stop for people, and so I'm just seeing all these tourists. I'm going, why are you here? Why are you not at home?
Are they masked?
No, they are masked. I mean, we'll kick people out.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 6'2", and I'm a sideshow performer. I don't care about pain, so I'll kick those people out. So
Blow some fire on them.
Yeah. And you're up in the New York way, Great Neck, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Great Neck, yeah, immortalized as West Egg by F. Scott Fitzgerald in The Great Gatsby, right outside of Queens, is where I currently reside.
Okay, it's so yeah. So as people just like people look at Texas, go, oh, you live in Texas, no matter what part of Texas and stuff like this. Because oh, you live in New York City, because that's how we look at it too. So you live in New York City.
Indeed.
No, I make
yeah, I'm from Rhode Island, and I used to live in Brooklyn for a long time. And I had a cousin come up from Tennessee, and he was like, well, let's go to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn is about as big as the state where I'm from. So it's not, with wildly different neighborhoods. And, you've got Coney Island on the south side, and on the north side, you're near Queens. And New York City is kind of terrifyingly large. I've lived here like 30 years, just kind of starting to wrap my arms around it.
Yeah, before living here in Austin, I lived in Houston for like 18 years, which is like size-wise is third largest. So I get how big, and like Houston, once again, the Houston size are like bigger than Rhode Island. So it's the same sort of concept.
That's madness.
I think
madness.
Houston's roughly the size of Connecticut, I believe, is what they broke it down to be, like the Houston area. So thank you, everybody who's on the chat and people who might be watching later, which is still cool as well. This is Trav SD, who is a writer. He has a travel, I don't want to say called travel log, because that makes sense. It's called Travel Lance, which is why I had it in mind. But he has a really cool little blog online that talks about various sideshow and vaudeville stuff, which I find fascinating. I read it all the time. And anytime he pops something up on Sideshow Spectrum, I'm like going, what's he talking about today? And so I really dug it. I really dig it. Hot Todd Lincoln says, howdy. Have you ever met Hot Todd Lincoln?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's a strong man out of the Baltimore, D.C. area.
Oh, very much. We're hoping to have an event down there, because James Taylor, who wrote the intro, that's his town. So when the smoke clears from this virus, Yeah, he used to have a wonderful dime museum down there, the American, yeah.
Yeah,
hoping to make a pilgrimage.
Unfortunately, James communicates by smoke signals and telegraph, so trying to get him on the show. The closest I ever did is I've become good friends with CM Christ from World of Wonder, and And so one day I actually like James called me, and so I had James on the phone. I had my physical phone, and I just had it up to the speaker so that way they could talk to each other because James doesn't understand. But it was still nice and lovely. But I go, that's gonna be the closest I'll probably have James Taylor on any sort of show like this because I mean he has a flip phone.
Oh, I thought he had like, you rang
Oh,
and you get the operator, like,
call it Mabel. Hey, Mabel. That probably is true. So let's talk about the Roses Royal Midgets and other little
Hey, I have
people
one
of
too.
vaudeville. I know, yeah. Imagine that. No, so I it's for people who don't have really big one. It's a very easy read in the respect that not only is it like great information about the Roses particularly, but there's so many great pictures and rewrites from all the old programs and stuff like that. It's just amazing. I really got into reading this book pretty hardcore and about Ike Rose and stuff like that. So let's get the dime pitch. Let's talk about the book. What's the dime pitch on this?
Well, yeah, well, I don't know if I can reduce it to your elevator speech. It all starts with our mutual friend Jim Moore, vaudevisuals.com/vaudevisuals.press.
We got the link on the chat.
This is the first
We got
book
the yeah
that he's
the link
published
that's
and
right
put
below you.
together.
So
Yeah. And Jim's this wonderful photographer of the variety scene in New York. Very generous guy who's gone around and really, someday what he's accomplished is going to be some major resource, I think, for future historians of if there's ever such a thing as a, vaudeville historian, sideshow historians of the future. Wonderful record. So, but also he collects things, and I guess he got these programs for Rose's Royal Midgets. And I had done kind of a cursory post for my blog about this act. My main bailiwick, I write about sideshow stuff, but my real wheelhouse is vaudeville. And this is one of the few acts, of little people that were major vaudeville performers acts, and mostly because Ike Rose was his impresario, and he put together, this very lively, large scale, uh, what they used to call a tabloid act in vaudeville, meaning a miniature musical, basically, like a review, with a couple of dozen little people or 25 little people. So that's quite an impressive spectacle. Um, so, and they, some of them were impressionists. There was like a I use the word midget because they use the word midget. It's not very popular nowadays, but a midget Mae West and a group of midget hillbillies, and they were all they all had skills. Like some of them were like saxophone players, and some could dance. So there was a little person of color who did Bill Robinson and could tap dance, and then one of the cool features of this is a clown that Jim and I both knew from Big Apple Circus named Karen McCarty. Her grandmother, I think this is just a coincidence. Her grandmother was in the troupe.
oh,
Her grand,
it's for Gladys. Yeah,
yeah, Gladys Farkas,
yeah.
and so there's interviews with Karen and her mom and info about Gladys. So she's kind of spotlighted. We know a bit more about her than a lot of the other folks who were in the act. I had done, like, I don't know, on my blog, I'd probably scratched out 5 sentences back in the day when I first did a post about it. And then Jim got the ball rolling on this idea for a book to get background on, he's published the entire program of one of their performances from 1922, I think. And then I started looking into it, and there's all this, like, I uncovered all of this original stuff about Ike Rose, which I don't think you'll find in any other book. I just knew the name Rose's Royal Midgets and not much more than that. And then when I started looking in old trade publications, the Variety and New York Clipper and things like that, I gradually uncovered that he was a very important impresario, like on the level of like a Ziegfeld or somebody, and he just kind of fell by the wayside in the States, mostly because uh, most of his fancy days were spent in Europe. He produced shows in Berlin and London and so forth, and so he didn't. It's like Ziegfeld is a character here in America, like it's a big Broadway character and stuff. By the time Rose, in the post World War One period, comes back and begins to show his little people. He's kind of in his last decade or two of performing, and he tours the vaudeville circuits. Which for him, he was used to, like, he presented like Houdini at the Winter Garden in Berlin, very glitzy, high end stuff. And this act was kind of a lark for him, I think, in his last days. Uh, Also, something very interesting to sideshow fans, I think, which emerged out of this research. I don't know if you know the Hilton sisters, not the contemporary ones, but the ones who were in the movie Freaks. Um,
I live in Texas. They were from like they're
yeah,
based
that's
here
right.
here in
Yeah.
San Antonio. So yeah.
Yeah. So at one point, he was presenting them in an act with the Blatzik twins, who were conjoined sisters from Bohemia, in what's now the Czech Republic, I guess. So he had conjoined, two sets of conjoined twins in an act, which is very rare. I mean, conjoined twins are
Yeah.
rare in and of themselves, and to have two of them is like, I don't know, that's like gold. Um, and so he was, and an act like that he would tour the vaudeville circuits with, as opposed to like carnivals and sideshows.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's a different. It's like it's more like it'd be better on a regular stage versus a tent. So yeah,
and you charge a higher ticket.
it's considered
Um,
classy then if you put it on
yeah.
stage. Yeah.
And then vaudeville died around 1932. So, and then not long after that, Rose died. And so Mrs. Ike Rose took over. And then she kept it going for like another couple of decades in playing the World's Fairs in the midget cities and carnivals and county fairs and stuff like that, right into the 50s, which is pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is probably how, like Gladys, I don't know when Gladys retired, but you know, um, Karen's not that old. So like, the fact that her grandmother was old enough to have been in this vaudeville act means it was going past the 30s,
Yeah. It could be.
into the 40s and 50s. So I should think.
Yeah. No, it's really fun. Like as I said, I really like because our mutual friend Jim, like, and I when he came to the Hoot this past year, he was interviewing a bunch of the different sideshow performers, including myself. So yeah, you said it's a great place to go. And then I'm on there, so it kind of degraded it quite a bit. But uh, when I saw he was releasing a book, and I go, all right, cool. And I saw you were doing it as part of it as well, and I go, all right, great, because I loved reading Travelanche, which is travsd.wordpress.com. Uh, uh, Lots
Yep.
of fun stuff on that as well, including like today. Cause like it's like I'm sure I don't know if it's happenstance you did it on purpose, but you talked a little bit about Lucia Zorate today, which I it's a person I talked about on my on the Devil's Hour, I guess a month or two
Ah,
ago, and
yeah.
her house that she bought when she got money is still available today as a bed and breakfast slash museum in
Is it tiny?
Veracruz. It's my
Is
time,
it small?
like her rooms are tiny, like her
Yeah.
parts of that because
Yeah.
her family lived there as well. So like her
Yeah.
parents, because it was her parents, because like she wasn't that old when she died. Uh,
Yeah.
but her parents, basically the house that she had, but apparently like there are parts of the house which are set for her size still apparently there, and it's in Veracruz, Mexico, that she gets like a bed and breakfast and museum. So I was like one of those like I discovered that. That's awesome. I don't know when I'm going to be able to go because of the way the world is, but I thought it was really funny. I just amused by the fact that she went, "Oh, Lucia," because like it's like there's like in the book there's like one picture of her which I think is great, but it's like
Yeah,
but I still
she's
went,
one
all
of
right,
the.
cool.
I think she's one of the very smallest ever to exhibit.
Yeah,
Oh, she seems very small. Also, speaking of tourist attractions, there's Count and Philip Nicole, the Count and Countess Nicole of
hmm
Montreal had this entire palace that they built, which was a tourist attraction there for many years. And so Jim's also got a program for them in
yeah.
here.
I mean, that's where you look all the pictures of their house and stuff like that. No, it's
Yeah,
just for everybody watching. Like really, it is. Pick up this book. Go to vaudevillevisuals.com. Hit the shop section. Buy the book. It's a really great buy. It's an easy read. So many great pieces of history. Um, I dig this a lot. And also, if you guys have any questions for myself or for Trav here, you can drop them
it
in the
makes
chat.
perfect bathroom reading. Put it right next to
It's a short
the.
read.
Indeed. I gave them out for Christmas. Perfect
Oh yeah.
Christmas present.
Oh no, it's I dig this so much. I'm like it's part like I've been slowly growing. I'm like when I moved to Austin, I sold almost everything off, and then I bought a new place, started like buying stuff, and so I've been like slowly rebuilding my book collection of like various cool like sideshow, circus, music, vaudeville. I love vaudeville too. All that sort of stuff. So I really dig it all. So I'm slowly collecting books and stuff like that to kind of build, but I'm not too much because I like keeping my shit clean too. But it's like this is a worthwhile book. Good.
Well,
That's
you might like my first book, No Applause, Just Throw Money.
it's
It's a book
yeah
that,
it's my yeah it's on my list of books
oh,
to get.
good.
So no, it is. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I wasn't like really, but no, it's like it's definitely a book, especially because I read the travelogue stuff and I've read this and I go, all right, really good, easy read, stuff like that, a lot of fun. So it's definitely that is definitely on my list uh, to pick up. It's going to be part of my collection, which includes like Todd Robbins's book and AJ's book as well. Uh,
Far out.
where did the shows take place in New York City for the Roses Midgets? There's a question. That's what I'm asking. So for K72 and ND, I guess K72nd Street, be my idea. I'm guessing you're
Oh,
asking
I
who did
know
the
who that
shows.
is.
Oh, okay. Oh, then you probably know what the question is. So that's great.
No, no, no. Well, one really cool thing about Ike Rose is he started out on the Bowery, which is where a lot of people started out. And that's how he got involved in show business. He was part of a family of German immigrants. That was a neighborhood called Klein Deutschland back in the day. And they had all of these saloons and dime museums and such there. And he, just got involved in showbiz. So he started out on the Bowery, but later he got involved with Gus Hill. Gus Hill was kind of well, both guys were co-founders, among the co-founders of the Columbia Burlesque Wheel, among other things.
Okay.
So they toured Gus Hill's own circuits, but they also toured the Lowe's circuit, which was the biggest of the small time, so-called, formed by Marcus Lowe, and it later became the basis of the MGM's uh, uh, theaters, the cinemas that later converted into to motion picture theaters. But so they toured the Lowe's circuit, and then towards the very end of vaudeville, they were on the big time Keith Orpheum circuit. So like in New York, the flagship of the Lowe's circuit was Lowe's Times Square. They probably played there, I'm sure. Um, if you want to know specific venues.
Okay. All right. Then I guess they got the idea for that sort of stuff. All right. What's some you've been doing this for how long have you been doing the travel the little WordPress thing or writing that sort of stuff?
Oh my goodness, 2008. So and I share, constantly circulating older posts. So the Lucia Zarate, I probably wrote it 6 years ago or something like
Okay,
that.
so yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, something like, in fact, one of my last live events, in fact, my last live event was celebrating I launched it on leap year day in 2008. So in early 2020, we had an event that celebrated that. So yeah, I think that's how it works out. So it's 12 years, 3 leap years.
So
So
it's
it's
three
really only
years old. So it's
that exactly. Um, yeah, it's a freak. It's a
what
freak of blogging.
that's no, it's an amazing, and I'm gonna talk, I'll talk it up all day long because I enjoy it. No, so looking through the blog and through the book, and I will soon look at the new book. I'll be ordering that soon. What uh, what actually drew you to the kind of vaudeville sort of sideshowy, that kind of old timey entertainment, I guess, for lack of a better term, that pre Hollywood sort of vibe?
Well, it usually comes back to the movie The Wizard of Oz, which was a favorite movie of mine when I was a kid. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I'm drawn to writing about little people.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone who was in that movie, almost every single star had been in vaudeville. So even though that's of the Hollywood period, all of the roots of it go back to the 19th century, and a lot of things about the aesthetics, and every major performer in there, including the little people, were veterans of vaudeville mostly. So I mean, that's like the childhood interest, and I was always interested in classic comedians as like a teenager, the Marx Brothers and Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy and all of that stuff. And then when I came to the city, I put on my own theater shows, and at a certain point, I got a day job at Big Apple Circus, and had just a tremendous experience working with. I was in the back office. I was a fundraiser, but worked with still gave me an opportunity to work with all the performers and the great historian Dominique Jandot, and and then whatever the guy who runs the concessions and the ticket box office people and the marketing. I really glommed onto the marketing, actually. And I got interested in kind of every aspect of it, and so then I started putting on vaudeville shows, and then started producing things. This is like back in the 1990s or so. Started doing my own variety shows, and at a certain point, I got this contract to write a book about vaudeville, which was really funny because compared to what I know now, I knew very little back then about the history of stuff. But obviously, I had to research it to write the book. The book came out like late 2005, 2006. And then a year or two later, I got the idea to start this blog that would promote the book, And so I started doing biographies of the vaudeville performers. And then that started spilling out to every other form of entry. Because, really, vaudeville is kind of like this form. It's like the hub of every other it's like circus performers perform in vaudeville, and burlesque performers perform in vaudeville, and straight actors from the legit theater perform in vaudeville. Musicians perform in vaudeville. It's kind of like they're all spokes of a wheel that go to vaudeville. So you wind up, and sideshow performance. So you wind up being interested in every kind of variety form. And then there's everything that came before, and then there's everything that came after, like TV variety, like Ed Sullivan and Milton Berle, and kind of as it's come to be like the center of the universe as far as I'm concerned. It's a metaphor for everything. So that's how I got
Okay.
it's like some sort of a parasite from outer space that ate me up is basically what.
I completely understand that to the nth degree. That's how I got it. Like, I got into Sideshow because in the end, I go, you know what? Anything that's left of center when it comes to entertainment has gone through Sideshow. So that's why I went. It's in somewhere like oh yeah burlesque burlesque comes from girly shows which come from
Totally
Sideshow and
right,
so like
right,
it's
right.
like and like it's like so on and so forth. Not like
Yeah,
even like a lot weird like there would be stand like the vaudeville comedians would still go through Sideshow occasionally, not as much. But really, vaudeville and Sideshow, the difference
yeah,
is just the
totally. And
stage
magicians.
intent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, there's a great Charlie Chaplin movie called A Night at the Show, and it's always been very interesting to me. A, because it replicates his live stage act when he was performing with the Carno Company, but also the acts that he puts on this bill, this fictional bill, are like sideshow acts. So it's cool. It's like there's a snake charming lady, and then there's a cooch dancer. I think there's a sword swallower or fire eaters. Um, yeah, it seems a lot more like a sideshow than vaudeville show, but there's no firm line between either one, really.
Yeah, it just comes down to whether it's in a tent or on a stage. I think that's
Yeah,
really the big difference. That's which is why I like because also
yeah,
even vaudeville for the time was also stuff that was kind of left of center to what was considered pop like normal pop culture. So that's I get it. I love
yeah,
it. I love all that old side like all the old vaudeville stuff too, especially when you're talking about the old the actors from like Wizard of Oz and like they all got their start in vaudeville. I mean that's definitely and then things like and then you go like the Marx Brothers. I mean, they would tour with their shows to before filming them as well, just like vaudeville. So,
yep.
uh, pardon me. So, when doing your research and talking and stuff like that, what I know we kind of talked about some stuff, but of all these different vaudeville or sideshow action like that, do you have a favorite?
Oh, that
Can
it's
we pick the
gets really
child?
getting harder all the time. I'm really partial to the comedians, so it's like Marx Brothers and W.C. Fields, and I rang in the new year by watching all of Mae West's movies. Um, just before we did this, I watched Chaplin's City Lights. So I'm really
Oh, so
partial to,
good.
yeah, yeah, it's really good. Um, so yeah, the comedians I'm partial to for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull out something because I was talking about somebody. I was talking about some. There's a guy from England who was where is his name? Oh, Clarence Chesterfield Howerton. Do you know this guy?
No.
No, wait, no, sorry. It was this, no, sorry, it's the wrong guy. That no, he's a small person. He's Major Mike. Uh, but no, there's a guy who's basically who became like the Barnum of like England, and he was a hokum salesman as well. He was trying to use electricity to sell like he was a contemporary of Mesmer,
Oh,
and
Bodie. Oh yeah, no, I know about him. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but the
Dr.
fact is
Bodie.
like
Yeah.
but Chaplin as a young lad
Yeah.
used to make fun of him by doing his own stage acts and stuff
Oh
like that.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
were funny.
yeah.
And just his name escaped me. I was going, what was the name of the
Walford,
guy? But
Walford Bodie. Walford
that's it.
Bodie.
Yeah, I found it like his thing fascinating, anyways. And I was going like,
Yeah,
he never got much play here, but the fact is that he was big enough there that Chaplin would lampoon him in his early
right.
days, and like he put the makeup on. He looked really close. I saw pictures.
He
So
did. It looked very similar. I think America what is too full of charlatans. Like England, England had the one, and America had 1,000 charlatans. So,
well, it's a land of opportunity. So I mean, and it's really hard to top the king of them all, which was Barnum.
yep.
So it's just whoever came afterwards or during just did not compare at all, and and even well, I would say never again, but that's not true. I mean, not to get political. Uh,
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, actually, I gave a talk at Coney Island, USA, where I talked about that some. When I was younger, I was all about, damn, we can't exploit performers anymore. And now I'm like, oh, well, that's probably pretty good.
No, it's
Um,
no,
but
it's a good thing.
yeah. But when you mentioned Barnum, there's a line to Ike Rose a couple of different ways there. Tom Thumb's wife, Lavinia Warren, after Tom Thumb passed away, I was one of the first people in the country to form these traveling Lilliputian companies, like these Lilliputian opera companies. And that paved the way for, so they'd have entire opera companies of little people,
Mm-hmm.
and they would tour and do operas, like comic operas, and sometimes like fairy tale pantomime, like Jack and the Beanstalk. They'd hire a giant to be the giant, obviously. Um, so that's obviously a forerunner of Rose's Royal Midgets.
Yeah.
That, and also the Barnum's probably main successor in the dime museum world in New York was a guy named George Bunnell. He had the biggest museum on the Bowery, and Barnum was actually a silent backer of Bunnell's museum. Um,
Okay.
so the Bowery was full of these dime museums, and that's also where Ike Rose probably would have got a lot of inspiration for what he did. Also, Jim's put in the book, he's got a whole section on these Eisenman photos. You were talking about the Lucia
Yeah,
Zarate.
yeah, the extra, yeah, because
Yeah,
all
so
those are
he had a
amazing
studio on
pictures.
the Bowery. So yeah, a lot of those sideshow performers would just walk over to his studio from wherever they were performing and sit for him for these formal portraits.
No, it's amazing. In fact, I think his most famous picture is not it's in here because it's not about little people, but the Jojo the dog face boy did one of those pictures, and it's like probably the
Yeah,
most famous of all those pictures.
totally. Do you think he got snarls? Well, he had to like comb his face. Did
As far
he?
as like it gets, I'm sure there was like an amazing treatment as far as he probably had like that was probably he probably had like there are women today that would probably love to have whatever his hair treatment was because I'm sure it's just very
To make it
involved.
silky and flowing?
Yeah, could be. I
You
don't know.
probably wouldn't want to blow bubbles if he was chewing gum.
No, that probably would not be a good plan. Probably anything that's very saucy probably would not be good either.
You
Uh,
wouldn't want to eat lentil soup or things that would
yeah,
drip.
yeah, no matzah from that corner deli, or anything like that. I don't know. Um,
Oh, yeah, I was telling you about Joey Lewis and the drink of whiskey
that's
on
right. Yeah, we
stage.
like that's why we were
Yeah.
yeah Joey Lewis because like it's
So, yeah, this goes back to like Prohibition days. Now, obviously, back in the saloon days of the 19th century, probably people were drinking all the time. But the Joey Lewis is a big influence on the Rat Pack, and kind of a mentor to Sinatra and those guys. And he was the first guy in on the nightclub stage in modern times to sort of make his whiskey glass and drinking actual whiskey on stage a kind of a prop. The interesting story about him is um, some gangsters actually slit his throat because he was supposed to perform at one club and he took a better offer at another nightclub, and the gangster who owned the other club got really pissed, slit his throat, but he lived to tell the tale. And so it's kind of the highlight of his biography, which was later made into a movie starring Frank Sinatra. But yeah, not many people survive getting the old second smile.
no, that is not that is very very true. I have a actually weirdly enough as I do have a weird tie to Frank Sinatra as well.
Oh,
Uh,
do you now?
yeah,
Wow.
so I know it's not it's tenuous at best, but it still counts. So my late wife, um, her her grandfather was the producer for the Major Bowes radio hour.
Wow. Wow.
and her grandmother was a Ziegfeld girl. And so, because this is the Major Bowes Amateur Radio Hour, this is like this. So for people who aren't aware what this is, it's like this is basically the precursor to all those sort of variety shows that you like. One of the precursors to
Yeah.
like true variety shows, and one of the acts that came through was this little band called the Hoboken Three,
Yep.
with a really young face, what I think probably 17-year-old Sinatra, if a day, and Bob Reed is the name of the producer. He listened to the band, so he looked at Sinatra. He goes, "You've got talent, kid. You need to get rid of the others." And the next year is when Sinatra joined with Count Basie and
Yeah, or Tommy Dorsey, one of those guys.
yeah, I think it was the Count Basie initially. I think if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
But yeah,
Wow, let's talk offline. This is good stuff for my blog. Good
oh yeah,
fodder.
so yeah, like
Yeah.
going over to her parents' house. There's pictures of her grandfather with like
Also, I really love this
Sinatra.
idea. Yeah.
Pardon me?
Oh, yeah. What I was starting to say, I really love this idea of multi-generational people in show business, and so I love to talk to people about their grandparents if they were in vaudeville or whatever they did, and what motivates the perpetuation of traditions, and
Oh yeah.
the romance of showbiz.
Another story with Bob, real quick. The fact is, like, after the Major Bowes ended, he went to the D.C. area, worked for like some radio station and stuff like that. And they had a young cub reporter. She was helping going over stuff and taking care of it, which was a young Jacqueline Bouvier. And so there's pictures of him with little Jackie Bouvier and stuff like that. So it's one of those,
Whoa.
I go, what? Like I saw these pictures. Uh, uh, it was just amazing sort of stuff, like listening to the stories about what their life was like, and I was going, wow, I would really like to really kind of like knew these people, which I never got a chance, but it's just a weird kind of tie. And then but yeah,
So
Gersh also, there's a tie to
Jackie
Gershwin
was
as
a
well.
society reporter. I guess I knew that, but I forgot.
Yeah, and then her grandmother was like courted by one of the Gershwins, but that never came to be as well. So there's a signed like American in Paris thing at the house saying you
Wow.
will always be my, like such and stuff like that, that went to her. And so we're just going, this is amazing.
Wow.
And and my late wife's parents go, yeah, this is the stuff. Yep, that's what it is. They like it for the fact is it's got a name on it. Not they don't. I mean, they appreciate the history to an extent, but they don't really understand. They just don't get in. They never got into it. And so I'm just going, this is amazing. And they go, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's got Gershwin on it. I'm going, no, you don't understand the implications of
Right.
how cool
They
this
just kind
is.
of take it for granted or whatever.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's just like that art piece, whatever. And so I'm going,
No, it's history, man.
yeah. What time is it? Oh, we still got about 15, 20 minutes on the chat and stuff like that. If anybody has any questions, something like that, please drop us online. It's the idea. We're here to talk about fun stuff. We're once again, make sure you go to vaudevisuals.com, pick up your copy of the Roses Royal Midgets, which has essays by Trav SD on there and a foreword by James Taylor. And his little foreword is fucking hysterical. So I got such a big kick out of that story.
Yeah, I
And
said he got hate mail from a munchkin.
yeah, no, that's really the stick, and it's so funny. And as I've been engaged for a while, it's like I'm reading and I'm hearing him tell. I can hear him tell this tale, and so it's really good. So yes, I'm not going to give away all that is. I'm just saying, buy the book so you can read that story because it's amazing. And then also all the other stuff, the great things in this book, including there's some little histories about a lot of other little people in here as well. Like I literally I went Mr. and Mrs. Tom Thumb. I like thumbed quickly and like
And the doll family, which
all the
are the
doll family.
yeah,
Like that's a crazy, like of all the little people families. That's a crazy story and
yeah.
about people.
I mean, I'm not sure a lot of people know that the two little people uh in Freaks were brother and sister, playing
Yeah, they weren't playing brother and sister.
playing a romantic couple, which is very
Yeah,
strange. Very strange. Hey, whatever floats your boat.
I don't judge. That's how it works. And if it's just acting, great. It's just acting. That's all it was, really, right? No, there's so much good stuff in here. I literally all I've done. Like I read through it once, and then yesterday because it was the holiday and I had nothing better to do. It's not like I can go out and go anywhere. Uh, I went through it again and really took a time to really like pay attention to like really look at the pictures and the small stuff and like looking at the fact is it has old uh like the old biographical, like you talked about the Count and Countess, like the old biographical sketches. Like this is stuff that was printed back in like the 20s and 30s
Oh yeah.
and all the reprints. And I'm just going, this is such amazing stuff in here. I'm really happy I got this book.
And there's a
So
really strange when I was looking through this before we got on, there's this ad for
the
David's
ad,
ink, and it says
yes,
Rose's Royal Midgets use a He-Man's ink, David's ink in all of their fountain pens. So
yeah,
I
I
don't know
know.
what,
It's such a weird ad
and
in
it's like,
general. Because
oh, these little people use these pens. I guess that's the pen for me. And also, what's it got to do with He-Man and
I don't.
masculinity?
I have
Um,
so many questions. They probably have to do with like earlier ad stuff for
indeed,
them.
indeed. How's it right? I'd like to know.
I would
But
like to go like I would like to see some of their earlier ads with for David's Inc. to see where that's where they get maybe the He-Man thing is their catchphrase or something. I don't know, but I'm really
maybe they
fascinated.
had strongmen endorse their pens.
Oh, could be for that time period. Oh, yeah, depending on when it was. Yeah, I mean it could be. I mean I think it's a Mighty Atom maybe. I don't know. Unlikely.
Hey, did you see? It's also the Mighty Adam's birthday. It's
Oh, that's
also
right.
his
It is.
birthday.
Yeah.
Joseph
And like
Greenstein.
yeah, and Hot Todd Lincoln's in the chat. That's one of his kind of idols was
Ah,
Mighty Atom because
yeah,
uh,
he was
Mighty Atom
cool.
was yeah Mighty Atom, which was like a big Jewish strongman who like that's what Hot Todd Lincoln is. So it works out.
And he had great Coney Island connections. Worked there a lot.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
so I have a Texas question for you.
sure. Ask me whatever.
The interstate circuit was the big circuit in the Texas region back in the day of vaudeville.
Okay.
Do you have any theaters in Austin, like old vaudeville theaters or?
Some of the theaters have been around. I moved here about a year ago, and just as I started figuring out where everything was, everything shut down. Uh,
Oh,
and Texas, believe it or not, Texas really doesn't care about history that much unless it pertains to being Texas. So I'm sure we have some old theaters that used to exist. They're now still the buildings are there, but they're no longer. But like I think probably the Texas Theater, its original location, I'm sure did some vaudeville stuff. Uh, Austin had some stuff. I think most of the vaudeville things you were going to see would probably be more in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, and some
yeah,
of it in the
yeah.
Houston because like in the Houston area, that's also where a lot of the smaller circuses would do wintering is in that area. Like I think what AG Barnes wintered down in that area, so did
Okay.
Sal
Yeah, yeah.
Sloto. Uh,
Yep.
the in South the city of South Houston was founded by I think one of the proprietors of AG Barnes, not the original, like not AG Barnes, but like one of the people who took over it. And he said, "I'm just done traveling," and so he became mayor, and then used elephants to help build the roads in South Houston. There's actually some weird pictures. You're watching elephants like move stuff aside and like use like
Cool.
bulldozers. It's like a weird, crazy thing.
Oh, I
It's
never knew that.
it's one of those things I kind of knew what it was, and then when I was doing research for the Devil's Hour about just like for a long time, all I did was like Texas sideshow stuff. I went, oh, let's learn about Texas sideshow stuff, and I came across some blurb about it when I was researching something else, and then I was trying to find out more about it, but there's not a lot online presence to do so. So it's one of those whenever you can go into whenever I can go into like an actual real library again, I'm gonna try to like try to deep dive into that because there's enough references. I probably can go down to South Houston proper and probably find some more record information. It's like that, and plus like San
Yeah.
Antonio, which is an hour from us, has a huge depository for a lot of Texas circus stuff as well. That's where a lot of stuff get put to because a lot of the Mexican circus, we have tons of Mexican circuses that come through here. So that's the only circus stuff
Right.
that's the only stuff we ever saw regularly was at least in the south side was at least in my lifetime outside of the Ringlings and Shriners, lots of Mexican circuses. So there's a big stuff in San Antonio which I plan to go to once you can do that again.
Have you been to Nacogdoches?
I know Negatish, yeah.
That's that how you say it?
Some
How do you
people,
say
yeah.
it?
It's believe it or not, I'm not Texan. I just lived here for a long time, but
Oh,
I've
okay.
heard them people they talk say Nacogdoches, so I just go
Okay.
Nacogdoches.
That's supposed to be where the Marx Brothers became a comedy act. They had a singing trio. They sang for a number of years. As like first they were like the Four Nightingales or the Three Nightingales, and then so they gradually they started fooling around on stage a little bit. But it was supposed to be in that town where they were performing, and then somebody ran in and said there was a mule loose in the street, and so the whole audience left to go see the mule, like whatever, kick around in the street. And then the Marx Brothers got really mad. And so when the audience came back, they started insulting them and just like fooling around on stage.
That's actually sounds amazing. I know I was not aware of that. That's a really cool thing.
That's how Groucho told it. Some historians think he merged two different anecdotes together, but the way he used to tell it was it happened in Nacogdoches. He said Nacogdoches is full of roaches.
Could be. You also could be using because one is. I hope it's well. Sometimes the legend is better than the truth, so I'm going to go with the legend. But also the fact is like Nacogdoches is full of roaches is a great thing to say. And he loves some, and if anything has told us throughout the years that Groucho loves some wordplay. So, but no, I'll have to do some. I know some people that live up in Nacogdoches, so I'll have to put a bug in their ear, as it were. Just hey, can you go check your because I can check their records or something like that. If something like that happened, there has to be they have to have a little thing in like their courthouse or something about it. I'm sure it's their one claim to fame. And to show you how crazy that town was, the fact is people left a singing thing to go watch a mule kick around in the street.
Well, this would be like, probably 1910, 19 teens sometime. So it was probably still very frontiery, very kind of like.
No doubt. But the fact is that shows you what sort of entertainment they were into then. That's Texas. Yeah. That's Texas. Oh, we can watch these people sing, or we can watch some people. We can watch the mule go kick stuff. Let's go watch him kick stuff. That's Texas. King of the Hill isn't a lie. So we have a few minutes left. So we talked about the book. We talked about your blog. Talked about your other book. I'm going to be getting. Is there anything you're wanting? Is there anything else you're wanting to promote from it, other than those two things right now, so that we can get that out of the way?
Yeah, no, just maybe my other books, No Applause, Just Throw Money, the book that made vaudeville famous. And then I wrote one about silent comedy called A Chain of Fools, Silent Comedy and Its Legacies from Nickelodeons to YouTube.
Also looks interesting. I'm probably going to order them both because I love silent comedy. In fact, as you went and you're trying to chain that stuff together, I'm on board.
Cool.
Do you have anything that you're? Is there another plan about? Are you thinking about the next book, or are you just kind of letting?
I am actually. Yeah. I had a nice New Year's walk the other day. I've been sort of trying to figure out, navigate this technology world. I'm very retro person. I'm very, 19th century. And so figuring out 21st, so I spent a lot of this year working on a podcast, which I probably won't launch until well into next year. But then it occurred to me um, that my next project's probably going to be about television variety. I had
Ooh,
pitched that to
okay.
a publisher earlier, and there really isn't. I don't think there's a thorough book on it. Um, and it's kind of a natural place for me to go next, and it weaves in very. And then and that would allow me also to start playing around with technology a bit. Sharing a lot more clips from TV shows and uh,
Oh
and
yeah.
and contemporary variety. Uh, you know, so many friends put on great shows, and so I can link to other people's contemporary shows and so forth. So that's probably what it's going to be, I think.
I'm definitely on board. You'll have at least
Yeah.
one person wanting to read it because that's my jam. Like I said, that's uh, as my quick elevator. Like that's how I like when I after my personal tragedy happened and figured out my way of the world. I started producing shows, and because I have such varied interests. I went with variety, like a straight variety show. So I go, all right, cool. I'll have a musician and sideshow and comedy and all this different stuff together. Because I go, I like all these things. Everybody should like these things too, and they don't necessarily see this stuff because especially in Houston where I was doing the shows, the music scenes were only constrained with the music scene, so they didn't really pay attention to the other scenes and so on and so forth. So if I brought all these different scenes together,
Yes.
spread
Yeah.
that
Right.
love
Right.
around. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so
That's the
that's
beauty
what
part. Yeah.
that's what
You
I go.
know.
I like all these things. Let's get into that too. And so that's
Yeah.
how I started. In fact, it's molded, but my that's how my original the Devil's Hour, which I do here on Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here in Cabin Fever live stream. It started as a stage show, and my joke, like the joke is fact is like I started with season 2 here online because first season is only available live. You had to have been there.
Yeah.
So now it's adapted and stuff like that. But that's why I got so like variety shows. Yes, because I've loved
Yeah.
variety shows forever. Because I like everything. So I like seeing the acts. I like seeing the
Yeah.
music. I like seeing the variety performers. I like seeing. I mean,
I find, if you go to, I mean, everything is great when it's great, but there's something about if you go to see 8 singers, singer-songwriters in a row or 8 stand-up comedians in a row, no matter how good they are, there's a certain monotony that sets in. And there's something constantly refreshing about seeing a circus act, then a singer, then a comedian, then, a magician or whatever.
yeah, I
It's
agree.
variety.
It makes the show stand out more later as well, like as an audience member, because then you go, because then when you go, oh, yeah, the singer, and you go, you remember which singer were you talking about? Now you can go, well, remember the magician? Go, well, there's only one magician, so it makes it
Right.
easy.
Yeah,
So,
there's that too, right?
or like, or maybe two, but they're very like a mentalist versus
Yeah,
like a stage magician, so it's very different.
yeah,
But that's why I started doing stuff. And so when they asked Tifa Tillywinks, who's a burlesque performer and clown out of Houston, Texas, she's the person who created this network because she went, all my performer friends are going to be out of work for who knows how long. Here is a virtual busking corner that people can still try to either make some money or at the very least making sure their names are known. And then she asked me, and I go, well, yeah, I'll bring the show on, which all I would do is talk about all these other people to give them more of a corner to show
yeah,
their work. Because that's what all I want to do is I want to make sure people's names are remembered. So when we can do live stuff again, like legit live,
yeah.
everybody will go, oh, yeah, I think I kind of remember seeing something because the name is still circulated. So, because that's what
That's
I want to do.
brilliant.
Plus, I have nothing better to do either because I can't go out. No, I know I love it, and like the Devil's Hour in my mind was always a TV show, so it worked out well. So I was gonna, and then they asked me to do more time, so I said, all right, cool, I'll do like an interview show, and I started talking to people I knew initially, and then I went, what are things I like, or what are some cool stuff, and so uh, uh, I never met Todd Robbins until I brought him on the show, and because I really like,
Nice.
I
Yeah.
watched American Carney, and I really like him, and I knew he was starting up some stuff, and so I reached out to see if he was on board, and then I had met Mysterion from
Yeah.
the Sentimentalists, and I did the same thing, and then
Cool.
we met 5 minutes before the show started, so and I would talk about the book because I really it's once again people pick up right here. Roses, Royal Midgets, and Other Little People of Vaudeville. It's an amazing book, easy read, so much great information. There's such great history and book pictures in here. I cannot, and it randomly goes to Three Del Rios, which is another fascinating family when it comes to when it comes to the little people families too. Like
Yeah.
a little, oh yeah, that's another like just like the dolls. That's another weird family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the history because I like seeing where the bones of today's shows come from. So it's like the reason why people do stuff today is because of the bones.
Yeah. I know there's so much good stuff to steal
Yeah. Oh
that
yeah.
hasn't been seen in a while.
Oh hey, hey, Jim apparently is on the chat. He goes, hey,
Oh,
thanks,
good.
chat. Thanks for talking about this fun book I love working on. Jim, no, it is an amazing book. Thank you and you, both of you guys,
Uh,
for putting this book together. Jim, you were very nice and kind with me back at the Hoot this past year, so I'm happy to return the favor in a lot of ways, but that's not really returning a favor. I would be talking about this book anyways once I started reading it. So I'm just glad that Trav could jump on and talk about it as well. And we'll talk weird sideshow stuff and weird vaudeville stuff because I'm into that. And then we'll talk variety show. And then whenever you get the podcast ready to launch for the next book, I'd love to have you back on and we'll talk about that stuff again because I'll talk
far
about it.
out.
I
Cool.
love all this stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you guys
Same
once
here.
again for tuning into the show. Let me get all my plugs out of the way, and then we'll get out of here. Monday, myself and Scabs the Clown, we do a show every Monday at 7:30 Central Standard Time called Gaffing the Truth, where we talk about conspiracies, cryptids, and just like weird shit like that. This week, we're going to be talking about snow monsters, and we're not just limiting to like abominable snowman and yeti. We're talking about like the Tibetan death worm, maybe a little bit of troll stuff. There's all sorts of weird stuff. I'm like everybody talks about why you do it. Like I am like the Scully to his Mulder to all this sort of stuff, and so I find it fascinating, even though I don't believe in it, but it's so cool. It's still a good story, so I like it. And then Wednesday we're starting season 4 of The Devil's Hour coming back on. I've got some really amazing acts. I'm not going to give it away because that's half the fun. You got to tune in and see. But I can tell you there's some new stuff that that I'm fairly confident you hadn't seen all of it yet. So thank you guys once again for tuning in the show. Thank you, Trav, for being part of the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
Anytime.
All right.
At some point, maybe I might bring Jem on too. So
Yeah.
anyways, you guys be cool, be safe, be lovely. And as always, keep drinking.